because we are missing our vice chairman, who is possibly stuck in traffic, and one other who is also stuck in traffic. So we'll carry on at the moment. If you have mobile devices, could you please put them on silent or turn them off? If the fire alarm goes off, it's the real thing. There's no drills planned for this evening, so please leave the building via the marked exits. This committee meeting is being live streamed. It is also being recorded, and a link to the live stream can be found on the Council's website at www.tenderingdc.gov.uk/live meetings. For the purpose of the recording, I will introduce everyone. I'm Councillor Maria Fowler, the Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I will introduce the members of the committee separately. Councillor Maurice Alexander.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Jeff Bray.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Bernard Goldman.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Adrian Smith.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Anne Wiggins.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you, members. The council officers assisting the committee this evening are from Committee Services, Bethany Jones and Katie Coppenall. From Planning Services, Planning Officer Michael Pingram. Planning Manager John Pateman G. The Corporate Director, Planning and Community, Mr. Gary Guyver. And our Planning Solicitor, Mrs. Joanne Fisher. There are no changes to the agenda running order this evening. The application will be presented by the officer, followed by public speaking in the order of the applicant or agent, any members of the public who have already asked to speak for or against the application, a speaker from the town or parish council, and finally the ward councillor. Members of the committee will then have the chance to question the officer. Once all the questions are answered, the committee will then debate. When all the points are discussed, finally I shall ask if we have a resolution, and will then call for a proposer and seconder, and the committee will then vote according to the normal rules. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence and substitutions. Please, Bethany.
Thank you, Chair. I have not received any apologies for absence or substitutions.
Thank you, Bethany. Item 2 on the agenda, the minutes of the previous meeting held on Tuesday the 2nd of September 2025. Have you all had a chance to have a look, those who were present at these minutes? Any problems at all? No? Okay, could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Alexander, seconded Councillor Bray. All those who are in favour of me signing these as a correct record, please show. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any? Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare an interest in application 25008074, being the Lifeboat House in the Parade, Walton Londonese. I have always and will always be a full supporter of the lifeboat, and I've also worked for them in the past, and at this point I would like to retire. With your permission, I would like to retire from the room to allow this to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Item 4, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38. Please, Bethany.
Thank you, Chair. I have received a question on notice on behalf of Councillor Everett. However, he is not here tonight. Would you like me to defer that question, or would you want me to read it out myself?
If you'd like to read out the question, please, Bethany. Thank you.
So the question is, during the debate of this committee on the 8th of July 2025 regarding the enforcement policy, questions arose as to whether the policy was robust enough relating to maintaining land or buildings adversely affected affecting the amenity of an area. The particular case cited was 15 2nd Avenue and 5 Esplanade in Frinton, but this is an issue that affects councillors across the whole of Tendring, including numerous cases in Clacton-on-Sea, Dovercourt, Manningtree, Elmstead, Holland-on-Sea, St Osoph and Walton-on-the-Naze. Would the chairman consider whether it would be appropriate for this committee to review the policy, particularly in relation to enforcing section 215 untidy site notice / maintenance of land issues, with a view to strengthening the enforcement response to such sites blighting areas across our district?
Thank you, Bethany. The answer to the question: the Council's Planning Service Enforcement Policy, the policy, adopted on the 8th of July 2025, provides a robust framework for addressing untidy land and buildings adversely affected amenity in the district of Tendring. It includes the use of the power under Section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 as amended, through the service of the notice to require an owner/occupier to maintain land or buildings if its condition causes harm and adversely affects the amenity of an area (Section 215 notice). Local planning authorities have discretion over whether or not to take enforcement action, and they need to consider whether action is lawful, appropriate and proportionate. The policy explains the power to serve a Section 215 notice and sets out clear criteria for when and how the Council will exercise this discretionary power. The policy prioritises cases based on harm, and in addition to the service of a Section 215 notice, explains that a breach of the notice may result in prosecution and or direct action where necessary. As with all policies, it is subject to regular review as it is appropriate and good governance. This particular policy already sets out that it shall be reviewed every 4 years or sooner to remain compliant with legislation, national and local planning policies, and to reflect good practice. Since its adoption on the 8th of July 2025, there has been no significant change in the law. National and planning policies and good practice guidance require a further review or update at this time. There is no evidence that the extent of sites requiring the service of Section 215 notices have increased or decreased as a result of the current policy, given the short time it has been in place. There is no evidence that the policy has failed to be applied appropriately to deal with the specific untidy land sites. There is no evidence of anything missing from the policy that it requires to be sufficiently robust. It is perhaps a frustration that the resource to drive the policy is not sufficient as opposed to the policy being robust. In practical terms, strengthening the enforcement response may involve reviewing current resourcing levels, ensuring officers have appropriate training on updated legal requirements, and considering the introduction of new processes to improve the efficiency and transparency of investigations subject to data protection requirements. Additionally, it could mean closer monitoring of compliance rates and public reporting on the outcomes to provide reassurances that untidy land sites are to be addressed promptly and effectively. Work on some of these points has already begun given the adoption of the policy. In summary, it is entirely appropriate for this committee to review the policy, as the Planning Committee is designated as the reporting body for both planning applications and enforcement policy matters. If the committee's primary concern is to strengthen the enforcement response to sites blighting areas across the district, it is important to clarify if strengthening relates to the written policy or is more about the operational factors and the exercise of the Council's discretion when determining whether or not to issue a Section 215 notice. Operational resource enhancements can support the effective application of the existing policy framework. While the policy is fit for purpose and subject to regular review, the committee is within its remit to review the policy as a whole or with a specific focus on Section 215 notices. And should it wish to do so, any review should be evidence-led, and consideration should be given to whether the desired strengthening relates to policy wording or to practicalities of enforcement delivery. Item 5 on the agenda is our first application this evening, which is A1 25/0107/5/full, which is Holland Football Club, Dulwich Road, Holland-on-Sea. And to present this item for us this evening, Mr. Pateman-G.
Thank you and good evening. Right. So to start with, this is start again. This is Holland Football Club. The site itself is set within the football club or existing football club site, which is currently it's taking up a piece of land on the side of the pitch and sharing part of the car park. Access is, as the existing arrangement, to be shared with the football club via the adjacent residential development. Just to put that into context, this is the aerial photograph, and you can see where the pitch is on the left-hand side, and the red line is the side area that includes part of the car park and part of the side of the pitch. Just to run through some photos to begin with, we have the entrance on this one, and then we have the clubhouse with the proposed site behind to the north, and the car park you'll see to the right. That's the car park as existing, and you saw this the other day as well. With the top end of the car park, to the left-hand side would be where this new building would be placed. And this is within the site where the building is going to go as well. We're looking towards the pitch at this point, and a different angle of where the siting of the building would be as well. So now using those photographs, you'll see that this proposed building, so the existing clubhouse is this building just to the south here. To the north would be this proposed new building for a single-storey day nursery, and we have a shared parking arrangement there. Hit that button. In close-up, we have, in detail, we have a outdoor play area that is enclosed and secured just to the north of the new building, which is just here. We have no access shown to the pitch itself for obvious reasons. We have the entrance coming from the car park itself, the car park shown just there. And we have bollards that are being proposed to be placed along there to ensure cars don't run over onto the land designated for the nursery. In terms of elevations, this is timber clad to the centre with brick gables. It's a simple, modest building. I think I personally like the bit of fun with the colour windows in the middle, but ultimately it is otherwise a relatively neutral. There's no specific street scene or character within this locality. Its reference is back to the clubhouse itself, but otherwise it is modest and humble in its appearance. And just to put that into context, we've been given this 3D sketch as well, where actually I think the colourful windows in the middle sort of shine out a bit more. And that's what we have as the proposal. I will just go back to the layout there. In conclusion, the proposal, in our opinion, does not result in a departure of policy on the basis that this is a safeguarded open space, because this particular piece of open space is already off limits in terms of public access and already part of the pitch area. It ultimately is not regarded as a departure. It's not a public open space. Given the controlled timing, the nature of the development, it is not considered likely to result in measurable and demonstrable detriment to residential amenity or highways, given the existing operation as the football club. The reason this has come towards members is also because we own the land and that needs to be declared. But otherwise, our recommendation is one of approval. I would like to make one slight alteration to the recommendation. There is reference to biodiversity net gain as a condition. On review, we're not sure if it's necessary. So in terms of any recommendation going forward, the recommendation is of approval, but subject to delegation for me to just make sure that we are applying the correct BNG policy or not as applicable, if that's acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. We have one speaker for this item, the applicant, Mr. Mark Sorrell. Mr. Sorrell, if you'd like to take a seat where the microphone is there on the middle, and when you're ready, if you'd like to hit the button in the middle, and you have 3 minutes. Yep, that's fine.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Mark Sorrell. I'm the founder member of Holland Football Club and the chairman currently at the moment. Just like to speak, obviously, for the 3 minutes on the nursery. A few little bit of details about the football club after. The proposal for the new nursery will provide sufficient social and economic benefits for the local community by creating 75 high-quality child places that accept all government funding schemes. The nursery will offer affordable and accessible early education for families of working backgrounds. Flexible hours will support working parents, helping them balance employment and family life while contributing to the local economy. In addition, the project will generate at least 12 new jobs, opportunities, strengthen employment prospects within the community. The nursery promote well-being and community cohesion and offering a safe, nurturing environment for children to grow and learn. Overall, this development will be a valuable addition to Holland on the Sea, enhancing both family life and the local area vitality. Having a nursery located within the football club will bring a wide range of benefits to both the club and the wider community. The partnership will create a vibrant multi-use community hub that will encourage families to encourage more closely with local sports and recreation. Parents dropping off their children will naturally become more involved in the club's activities, boasting awareness, membership and support for local teams. The shared facility can also foster collaboration such as child fitness sessions, family events and community open days, promoting health and well-being from an early age. This integration will strengthen and support long life engagement in the sport, encouraging social connection and providing a safe, positive environment for families in Holland on the Sea. Just for your reference, the car park at the moment for Holland Football Club can hold 89 cars and 3 coaches. There is no midweek use from Holland Football Club whatsoever on the daytimes. In my opinion, one of the safest and secure locations in Tengrin. A lot of nurseries in our area are in residential roads, and a lot of them in very, in my consideration, very dangerous situations. In the local Tengrin area, there is a waiting list in nurseries exceeding 2027. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. Mr. Pateman G, is there anything that the speaker has mentioned that you'd like to come back on? No? In which case then, we go over to members of the committee for questions for the officer, please. Councillor Smith and then Councillor Bray.
Sorry, my usual question. I know you did kind of answer it, but if this wasn't one of our properties, would this be coming before us today?
Probably not. There was a debate about the departure of the plan because we have got a safeguarding open space policy on this site, but we've weighed it up that it doesn't offend that. But we may have bought this for you for the avoidance of doubt if it wasn't for the fact that it was council owned. So I will say no, but it's slightly caveated.
Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on some of the representations that have been received, I note there are 17 opposed and 21 in favour, so it seems fairly split. One of the things brought forward was incompatible site functions and concerns for safeguarding children. I think that was covered a little bit by both yourself and the applicant in that the site wouldn't be used for its two different functions at the same time. Can we be sure of that? Because there are occasions, obviously, where football teams might have an unusual game sort of a bit off the wall, and what plans would be possible to be put into place were that to happen, if, for argument's sake, there were a cup tie on a Wednesday. Pretty unlikely, I think, but would there be any plan if that were to happen?
So we don't have the ability to retrospectively impose conditions on the existing football club. So we have to work in the basis of worst case scenario in the context of the existing operation. We do have the ability to control the proposed use further, and in your papers you will find there are relevant conditions about how we wish the nursery use to operate with it in mind that it's in the location that it's in. With regard to the football club. So you will find obviously a condition on hours of opening and so on. So they should, for the most part, operate relatively separately from each other in the context of mostly during the day you've got the nursery and mostly other matches at weekends and evenings are going on without those two crossing over. However, that's not to say there might be a crossover, there might be a match, there's training that might be going on during the day. That will occur, but you're also dealing with a site that is relatively well enclosed within its own right within the site. So apart from the car park, where you are going to have people coming and going, which is a general use of any car park, you ultimately will be securing the children within the building or within the secured outdoor play area, which is enclosed correctly according to the plans we've got. So in terms of our assessment, we felt could not be demonstrated that there would be a conflict that we could ultimately refuse in planning terms. We don't feel there would be a significant risk to take that forward.
Thank you for that. That was exactly the answer I expected, just a longer version of it. Superb. Thank you very much. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wiggins?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the parking. I know from what has been said that there's space for 89 cars and 3 coaches. Are the coaches in a specific place in the car park? And also, looking at the diagram on there, you can't get all the way around the car park, and I'd be concerned about cars reversing and people actually coming out, because I understand that the young people will be coming out of the centre of the building right into potentially into the path. I know they'd be with an adult, hopefully, but potentially coming out into the way of a car. And I just think also that that traffic should be able to go round in a loop.
I know it's really hard to see on a PowerPoint presentation such as this, but there, in terms of the walkway area that is associated with the nursery, you have bollards placed all the way along there and around, and that obviously means that cars reversing, and this the reversing area and the parking space itself are all in alignment to our space standards anyway. But in that context, should someone go further back than they perhaps should, that ultimately they are bollards there that are already being shown. So the owner or the applicant has already considered that possibility of conflict. Ultimately, when they're walking out into the car parking area itself, as with all car parks, you know, you are obviously hopefully looking out for each other normally. So that's that point. But the the point about the coaches and parking, ultimately we've considered the car parking ratio of the football club, the timings of when the football club is more likely to be inactive compared to when the nursery will be active. And on the balance, with the Highways Authority as well, who have no objection, we don't think we could demonstrate there would be material harm to look at refusal on highway grounds or parking grounds.
What about being able to go all the way around the car park? Because, I mean, if you have got people reversing their cars, because they're more likely to front in rather than reverse in, of the fact that then you're going to have, there may well be space, but I just think that it would be better to be able to go all the way round.
Do you
so
mean
that
by
you
a
go in a
car
circle.
or pedestrian?
Sorry, for a car,
Okay.
rather than going to the end and realising that you've got to the end and then you have to turn round and come back the same way.
I don't have an answer for that. I think you find different versions. You know, ultimately, you'd be taking out possibly 4 spaces in order to allow a car to go all the way around that one end. On the other hand, modern cars, we find situations like this quite common and not ultimately causing a problem normally. I wouldn't know how to answer that very well. It's a preference, I suspect, rather than something that we could say has a material harm associated with it.
Councillor Smith.
Not really a planning consideration, it's more, I'm just curious, why are all the local representations on this document? I couldn't find anything when I went into the portal. It might be me, I've put the wrong numbers on or something, but I just couldn't see it.
Yes, no, I know what you're referring to. There has been a, let's call it mischievous representation made on a number of applications within the department, and because of their, well, effectively we're referring to it as a fake representation, but because of that activity of some individual, we took the decision temporarily for a number of applications to take away, to be fair, all representations off the portal. We don't have to have any representations on the portal at all. We reserve the right to have them off. They are material, they are part of this application, and that's why you can see them now. But ultimately, because of that, let's call them an individual, we had to take a decision not to put for certain applications representations. So this isn't the only application where we've made that decision. There's at least 5 others of late. We don't know what the intention or the motivation is of that person, but we are hoping they get bored and we move on.
So before we go into the debate, I shall just put my little bit in before I bring in Councillor Alexander. When we were at the site visit on Monday morning, I know our colleague who was still probably stuck in traffic, Councillor White, mentioned about the safety, with the safety aspect with young children and the bollards and cars reversing. Well, car parks, wherever they are. And there could be kids about any time. So it's parents' responsibility, isn't it, to keep an eye on kiddies, parents, carers, etc. I understand the safety element, but a car park is a car park. And I think by what you were saying, Councillor Wiggins, about a one-way system, in a car park, yeah, if you try and put a one-way system into this particular car park, you are going to lose spaces. And I don't. My view is I don't believe it's necessary. I am leaning very much towards supporting this application. So that's just my little bit for now. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to go and pick up a little further with what both yourself, Chair, and Councillor Wiggins had cited. As an ex-chair of governors, and remembering oh too well kick-out time when the school finished and the chaos that ensued. I'm a little confused as to why there is so much space, and this is a most excellent application because the use of this is well needed in our community. There is a very big shortage of places at this age. Is there? It surprises me that there is no designated area for the um, the, the, the people who are coming backwards and forwards to park. It would be an area set aside maybe just for them, as indeed within school who are privileged enough to have such parking, would do so, therefore herding all the children in one direction at one time. So I don't know whether that's been given any consideration, but I do see that the only problem with the application before us would be that parking problem. And having kids of my own, telling them what to do, and they do exactly what they wish, as children do. Can you see where I'm coming from, Chair? That maybe a designated area within the huge car park there might be worth some consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, listening carefully to everything that's just been said, I sort of take your view. We have the advantage in this will be a nursery, and therefore it's logical to think that any children going there would be accompanied by parents. It's unusual for sort of 4 or 5 year olds to travel to school on their own. And I still have a great deal of confidence that most parents do try to keep their children alive. So I'm relatively confident that that actually would be okay. A car park is a car park, and it is a problem, and you can reach the point where you sort of almost go over the top and reach the point where you can't do anything. So, Chair, the upshot of that, having looked at this, when the time comes, I'll be very happy to propose approval for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. So we're now in debate. So, Councillor Goldman.
Yeah, I agree with the parking in respect of on a mass exodus, but I think as a nursery, I think it's going to be a staggered because parents will be picking up the children at various times because they're going to be working. So those times will be staggered, not necessarily all at once. So I feel that this application should be accepted and goes through. I have no problem with it whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldman. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Bray has indicated that he would be happy to propose. With the amendment suggested by Mr. Pateman-G. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Goldman? Thank you. Okay. So, all those in favour of approving this application with the amendment that Mr. Pateman-G told us about earlier, please show. All those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? Abstentions? 1. This application is approved, and we will now have a 5-minute break, and we will be back in about 5 minutes. If you could stop the live stream, please, Katie. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Tendring District Council Planning Committee on Tuesday the 30th of October. The next item on the agenda is item 6, which is planning application A2 25/01065/4 Furs Lake, land off Heath Road, tendering Clacton-on-Sea. And to present this application for us this evening, our officer, Mr. Michael Pingram. Mr. Pingram, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. Yeah, so the application site is Furs Lake, which is just on the western side of Heath Road within tendering. The application is the change of use of land to leisure use and the construction of 2 holiday lodges. The application is before members following a call-in request by Councillor Harris, who was concerned if we recommended approval. The concerns he raised that it represents a form of backland development. It would result in highway safety issues and potentially harm to existing and future neighbouring residents. So this is the site location plan. Highlighted in red is the site here. Obviously you would have visited the site earlier this week, but the access is just on the eastern side of this drawing, and there's a long access drive that turns left at the bend, and then the holiday lodges are sort of proposed in that sort of northern section just there. This is a wider view with the wider context. So you can see to the north here you've got the Wallace Farm. It's a sort of semi-rural character. There is sporadic residential development sort of running along this section of Heath Road, but as you can see as well, there's further out, especially more, it becomes more rural with agricultural and grassed areas. The site itself, there's like a fishing lake just to the south of where the holiday lodges are proposed, but the actual site itself is a grassed area of land. So just run through some site photos. So this is facing west towards the site. So this is the initial driveway heading towards the site. This is sort of at the bend where you would have turned left, and on the right hand side is where the 2 holiday lodges would be. On the left hand side is the fishing lake. And this is sort of stood along that driveway a little bit further along and just looking north towards where the holiday lodges are proposed. And this is again just a bit further along that driveway. For context, to the right of the screen would be the fishing lake, and just on sort of straight ahead there is where the lodges are proposed. So this is a proposed block plan. You can see there's 2 in total, and they're located to the sort of northern parcel of the land, and again the fishing lake just to the south there. In terms of the actual design, they're single story, they're detached, they're each served by 2 bedrooms. And the initial plans included a design that officers felt was too urbanised and represented, or certainly sort of gave the appearance of 2 residential properties. So we asked for revised design, and this is what we've got here now. We feel this is more in keeping with the semi-rural location of the area. So in terms of the assessment, the principal development is supported on the basis that while the site's outside of a settlement boundary, it does result in a small increase in the tourism offering that the district can provide. As I say, the site is outside the settlement boundary, but it's not in an isolated location. There's a bus route just close by, and you've also got a farm shop just to the north there. So the combination of those factors mean that we're saying that the principal development is acceptable here. In terms of the impact to the character of the area, the site is well set back, and it wouldn't be visible from the street scene along Heath Road here. There's potentially wider views of the site from the south and west in particular. However, there's no public footpaths, and given the minor nature of the development, it would, and also it'd be seen within the context of some of this existing development running along Heath Road here, that harm overall is not considered to be significant. There are neighbouring properties sort of to the east of the site. However, there's a good separation distance for approximately 150 metres. So that reduces any impact of the built form itself. In terms of the additional vehicular movements associated with the proposal, yes, it will increase slightly, but 2 holiday lodges is not considered to make such significant noise disturbance that we feel that it would be fair to warrant refusal. In terms of highways, Essex Highways originally raised a holding objection on the grounds that it hadn't been demonstrated that the visibility space to the north could be achieved. essentially, while the access was existing or is existing, it was resulting in intensification to what could be a harmful access. However, amended plans or additional information has been provided that demonstrates that those visibility displays can be met, and you probably would have noticed on site that the conifer hedging to the north of the access, just where I'm hovering at the moment, has been removed pending a substation being installed. So following this information, Essex Highways have removed any objections, and also we consider there's sufficient space on site for the necessary car parking. Given that the site's bounded by high levels of vegetation, we required a preliminary ecological appraisal, so that accompanied the submission. That confirmed that there was minimal impacts, negligible impacts to protected species. Our consultants at Essex County Council Ecology Department have been confirmed that they've got no objections subject to conditions. So overall, the principle of development is acceptable given that the site's, whilst outside the settlement boundary, it's not in an isolated location and would result in a small boost to the tourism offering. The design following the submission of amended plans is considered acceptable. The harm to neighbours is not considered to be any particular detrimental level. And Essex Highways and Ecology have both raised no objections, and the same for our council's tree and landscape officer. So putting all of that together, the application is considered to comply with local and national planning policies and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pingram. We have two speakers on the list for this item, but as I explained earlier, there is some problems on the A12 which seem to be causing one of the speakers a problem getting here at the moment, but he may arrive. So the first speaker is the agent for the application, Mr. Stephen Nixon. Mr. Nixon, if you'd like to take a seat, and as soon as you push the button, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. So yes, I'm Stephen Nixon. I'm the agent for the scheme, and I'm just here to address concerns by the Parish Council. So the site itself is not within an isolated and unsustainable location. It is set well back, and the built form is not visible from the street scene. There are no public footpaths, and given the minor scale of the development, the proposal is not within the context of the existing built form to the east. The harm is not considered significant. Backland development applies to land behind existing developments and is not relevant in this case. The site is well contained, has significant separation distance from the properties to the east. It would not appear oppressive or result in loss of daylight or sunlight. The vehicular movements would generate a minor level of noise disturbance, but not considered to be significant or harmful. Visibility displays can be achieved. The conifers to the north of the existing access are to be removed in preparation for the UKPN substation, which has planning consent. The site benefits from strong boundary vegetation that currently provides a good level of screening and enclosure. The new development would incorporate biodiversity creation and enhancement measures. The design itself will follow Passive House principles and include renewable energy generation. Passive House is a voluntary building standard providing energy efficient buildings that require little heating and cooling. The development aligns with the statutory framework for biodiversity net gain, striving to achieve 10% net gain value over 30 years. The application is in line with local and national planning policies on the basis of supporting active tourism use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Mr. Pingram, is there anything that you'd like to come back on?
No comments from me at this time, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nixon, if you'd like to turn the microphone off, you may return to the public gallery. Thank you. Members, questions for the officer? Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Chair. It's a long while since I've dealt with a backland development one or potential backland development one, so I must confess I'm a little rusty on them. One of the things I seem to remember which was an issue and made something backland development was along a narrow driveway or access way. And that was one of the things that was effectively a no-no. Could I have your comments on its status as backland, please?
Yeah, this is one of those ones that sort of straddles between different policies because there's a tourist element to this as well as a residential element to it. In terms of your backland residential development policy, you're correct in the context of what is backland. That's defined in the preamble. But where you have various requirements, does it lose a net gain of private amenity space serving an existing dwelling? No, it doesn't. Does it cause tandem development? No, it doesn't. Does it cause fragmented land on the edge of settlement without suitable landscaping? No, it doesn't. So the only one really left is looking at the access point. And we've had this discussion before, on occasion, but actually you can, if I was to be an inspector looking at the application of applying this policy, it would be, in my view, to be taken as a proposal for access. This is an existing access. It already exists and it serves. It's already a long access in existence. So in order to demonstrate that a long access would cause harm, I would have to argue that it's new development in order to cause that harm. And as it's an existing development, I would find that very weak as a position to take. So I don't think you are in conflict on the basis that it is an existing access already serving. This is additional to that serving.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I understand your explanation. It's really good. Policy is fairly clear, so as it's opposing policy, I was a little concerned about that. Just one other thing, that if I could, and then I'm pretty much done, I think. Can you please confirm sewerage outlet from these two buildings? Where does it go? What are we doing? Are we septic tanking or are we mains?
Yep, so we just checked the application form. It's a septic tank on this occasion.
Okay, thank you. That was my concern. One thing we couldn't help noticing was the very, very attractive lake that was right next to it. Can we be absolutely confident that there is no potential for discharge if we're using septic tank for sewerage that close to what is a very pretty little lake? Thank you.
I think the position is we probably couldn't 100% guarantee that, but what we could suggest to you is that we could put a condition on, if you were minded to recommend approval, where we could secure details of the septic tank and exactly how that would work. But we don't have those details as part of this application. As a sort of slightly separate point, my understanding is it's a fishing lake that's kind of a separate entity, so I don't believe that there would be any problems, but because I don't have that detail to hand at this point, I can't 100% guarantee that until I see those details. So if members were minded to recommend approval, we could ensure there's a condition put in place that we officers could receive that information at a later stage.
That's disappointing in the extreme. There's clearly a potential issue there, if not a definite one. We can't say for definite whether there would be an issue or not, but that is a pretty lake. It is a fishing lake. It's full of fish. So I don't think, I'm personally, my position is I don't think we should be making a determination on this application until we have the information you don't have. That's my position at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Mr. Pateman-G.
I appreciate the concern, and this is one of those issues that overlaps other legislation. So on one hand, we are dealing with it in a planning context of amenity. On the other hand, you do have building regulations that kick in as well, and you have environmental law as well. we're not allowed or supposed to overlap other legislation that can be taken forward. The position I would suggest is that we can put a planning condition to be satisfied on the means of foul sewer drainage. Doesn't necessarily have to mean it has to be septic tank. It can mean that we are looking for the best option, and that would be within the remits of, notwithstanding the information we've received, we would like to seek approval of the means of foul sewer discharge. We can place that condition on if you wish, but if there's a greater concern around that, then we would have to take further advisement on what we would do with that if that translates into a concern of the debate. Just while I have the speaker, we've also just got one extra condition we do need to add to it anyway. We put the BNG condition on this one, which is appropriate to do so, but the monitoring element to that wasn't attached, so we will need to just add a monitoring condition in addition to the BNG to make sure that the BNG is actually implemented and monitored. So that is one extra, apologies for not mentioning it earlier, that's just one extra condition we do need to add to the recommendation as before you.
You'll get bored with me in a minute. I think I understand and I appreciate everything you've said, but I think my position remains the same. Basically, the committee have been asked to approve an application with what seems like less than all the information we need. And whilst it is possible for you to negotiate that afterwards, the committee wouldn't be involved in that negotiation, and therefore we would make a decision that we wouldn't actually have made with full information. I personally think that this should be deferred, and that's my position at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wiggins.
Thank you. I know that there's going to be a substation being installed there. I wondered where it was going to be, because I know that when we drove out on Monday, I have to say that the coming out of there was not good, especially if you look to your left. The trees that were down that side, it was very, very hard to see. And I just wondered what difference it was going to make to have a substation there, and whether more trees potentially would come out and it would make it easier to see, or what, because I think it's a very dangerous exit. Thank you.
So that substation is has been subject to a separate planning application that's previously been determined. We're just going to load up the plans for that to 100% guarantee. But from my memory, I think it's sort of to like the western part of this parcel of land, sort of to the left of the access as you would exit. But we're just going to load up the plans, and I'll just double check, confirm that to you in a second. Okay, yeah, so I mean, I'm going to try my best to explain this on this plan here, but it's just to the north, like where I'm hovering at the moment. It's just in that small little parcel of land there. What I would say is, in terms of the visibility, Essex Highways did initially raise objections, but all of this information was submitted by the agent for the application, and Essex Highways have reviewed it and gone back on their holding objection, and have now said that they're satisfied that sufficient visibility space can be have been demonstrated, and that they raise no objections. Thank you.
I am still concerned, but I guess they probably did a desktop survey back in 2019. That is being slightly facetious, but I just think it's an extremely dangerous exit. And I think more should be done about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggins. I'd just like to check with Mr. Pingram. The representations at Tendring Parish Council, they've listed backland objections, backland development, inadequate visibility displays, limited access and enjoyment for the neighbours. And there have been no letters of representation received from anybody or the neighbours?
Yes, I can confirm the only communication that we've received is from Councillor Harris and the Tendring Parish
Okay.
Council, but
So
we've not
nothing
received
further.
nothing in support or against.
Right, okay. Thank you. Any further questions for the officer, Councillor Alexander?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to, if I may, bring your attention to page 45, which is prior to occupation wildlife sensitive lighting design scheme. That's the lighting strategy, I believe. And I'm assuming that that has been submitted.
Sorry, did you ask if it has been submitted? No, it hasn't. It's a recommended condition, but it's one that they recommend if the lighting scheme is designed for the proposal. So it's Ecology's comments. They're saying that in the event that the proposal includes that, then they recommend that condition.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but that's not how I'm reading it here, where it says prior to occupation, wildlife sensitive lighting design scheme, prior to occupation and lighting design strategy for biodiversity in accordance with the guidance notes of the Institute of Lighting Professionals shall be submitted. And you're saying that hasn't been done. I might have misread it.
Sorry, yeah, I scrap what I just said. That was incorrect. It's actually recommended as a condition. Condition 10. We have requested those details, or the recommendation is prior to first occupation, the lighting design strategy for biodiversity shall be submitted. So it's a prior to occupation condition that's recommended as part of the approval recommendation for approval.
I would like to come back in debate rather than ask questions, please.
Yes, that's fine, Councillor Alexander. Are there any further questions? If not, we will go into debate. No further questions? Okay. So we're now in debate. Councillor Alexander, if you wish to continue.
Thank you, Chair. I was quite taken back and stunned by the sheer beauty of the whole area, especially the pond area. It's such a tranquil place, and I can easily see that it can and would be home to many of our native species that are in serious decline as we continue to build. They're finding it even harder to find somewhere. However, that is not what this is about. I'm concerned that there's a longer term plan. There's a huge amount of land there for two cabins. I'm not quite happy with what's in front of me, and I'd have liked to a little bit more information. So if Councillor Bray, if you were to propose deferment, as long as you have correct ammunition for that, I would be quite happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am very happy to propose deferment. I don't think we're ready to make a decision on this one. And I would defer on the basis that we learn where the sewerage will go. I think that's quite important. I also pick up on the point made by Councillor Alexander regarding the lighting, and yes, I appreciate that there's a condition that they need to this. But once again, that will be done after the committee has made its decision, and therefore we won't be in control of it. I would ask that this be deferred until we have those two pieces of information. I think it's vitally important, a potential ecology nightmare if this went wrong. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Any further comments? No further comments. So as it stands, we have a proposal for deferment of this item from Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Alexander. In that case, then, we will go to the vote. Those in favour to defer this item for further information? 1, 2, 3. Those against deferment? 3. So the chairman's casting vote, I believe. So that is lost. Mr. Pateman G.
Can I provide a suggestion? I'm not actually the biggest fan of the lighting design strategy condition that our place services team recommends. The alternative is to simply say, notwithstanding any details, there shall be no lighting unless approved by the local planning authority, full stop. So if you wish to supplement it to our alternative condition, that is one way forward if you are having a debate about that specific condition. I'm not going to comment on the drainage situation because we are where we are with that one.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. Councillor Bray and then Councillor Alexander.
Thanks, Chair. I think that's quite helpful, and it deals with the lighting problem. The sewerage one I still think is the main one. So I remain concerned, but I appreciate that could deal with problem 1. But we do still have a situation where there's a potential for putting sewerage into a very pretty lake, and I'm not keen on doing that. Anybody who cares about ecology wouldn't want to. The proposal for deferral has been lost. Therefore, Chairman, I propose refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Not sure I would like to go as far as refusal, but I still say that exactly what Mr. Pateman G has said. We have consultants, the consultees that we rely very heavily on their professionalism. They've given us the way forward, and we've now voted against them in effect, because what they're asking for is this strategy, and that's all I would like to see. It's a little, there's more that could be fed into this agenda. We only have one way of getting this right, Chair, and it's here tonight. And I don't think we've made a wise decision, which is very rare for me. I think that the decision to defer it is so much better as an application than refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Any further comments? Councillor Smith?
Is there anything that we can draw on the waste on this? Because Councillor Bray has got a point that we do need to work out how we're going to move forward with this. What conditions can we put on this? Or
I think, like, in a scenario like this, all we could recommend is that we could put a condition on requiring those details to be provided, so that if you were minded to recommend approval, it would be subject to those details being acceptable. When it comes to foul drainage and how it's disposed of, obviously the optimum choice would be via mains, obviously, but I would imagine that it's very unlikely in this sort of location that will be possible. It might be, but that would be obviously the optimal choice, and obviously we can secure it that way. If that is possible, then that would be what we would be searching to do via a discharge of planning condition. Then if that's not possible, we then move through the hierarchy, and it's the hierarchy of alternative options, and the top one on the hierarchy would be a packaged treatment plant. Then you'd move down to a septic tank. So all we could do is put on a condition to secure this, and if, for example, it was just a septic tank that was provided at discharge condition stage, then I think we would be looking for some sort of information to justify why the mains initially wasn't possible, and if that wasn't possible, then why a septic tank rather than a packaged treatment plant. Other than that, I'm not too sure what else we could do at this stage than just say that we can secure those details to be discharged at a later stage.
Thank you, Mr. Pingram. Yes, certainly, Councillor Bray, to come back.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate everything you've said, but it still leaves us with the same problem. We're being asked to make a decision, and we won't know where it's going to go or what decision will be made after our decision has been made. And I find that a very, very uncomfortable position for us to be in. And I don't think we should be in that position, which is why I asked for a deferral. A few more weeks would have given us opportunity to find out what is being done, and then we could make a decision with all the information. However, that was lost. So I'm afraid that that doesn't really satisfy me a great deal, because the decision will be made as to what's being done with it after we've allowed it to be built, and we can't go back on that. So that's the position I find myself in, and I don't see myself moving at the moment. Thank you.
Mr. Pateman,
I'm going to just invite members to ask themselves a question. One, people don't necessarily go out and pollute other people's land. Ultimately, this lake and surrounding area is not part of the proposal or the ownership that we're aware of. So in order to pollute, they would effectively A, trespass, B, would be committing a crime, and we are not therefore into the remit of duplicating legislation that is not part of planning. The other point you perhaps need to also consider is ultimately what happens if they turn around and says, we don't have to provide you that information, we don't need to give you any further information, you've got all the information you need to determine the application before you, it is going to be a septic tank somewhere on that site. Do we have sufficient ground to refuse it on that basis alone is a question that you would need to ask yourselves, and ultimately I would need to ask myself because I would have to defend the appeal possibly.
Thank you, Chair, which is exactly why I asked for a deferment first time, because I agree with you, the reasons for refusal would be extremely weak. But I still find, as far as I'm concerned, one of this committee's remits is ecology is a big thing for us. We are destined to look after wildlife, and we're destined to look after our countryside. And I agree with you, it's likely that a septic tank will go somewhere, and it's likely that some measures will be taken. And no, I don't believe anybody deliberately pollutes. But accidents happen, and I think we have an obligation and a duty as a committee to make those accidents as unlikely as we can. And that's what I'm seeking to achieve by finding out exactly what it is they plan to do before we say, yes, that's okay then. I think that's a perfectly reasonable position to take, and I'm stuck in it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm listening to Councillor Bray and agreeing very much with what he said. It's the same thing. How much do you put into an agenda for us to absorb, to bring to a committee? Well, you could put 1,000 pages in there, because I'm sure you could fill them up with all the technical details. But within it, and you mentioned the septic tanks, but there's no... It doesn't go any further than what they are, septic tanks, but are they biomass? Do they have runoff perries, drains alongside of them? What would happen? Do we have is this a floodplain? There's no evidence of any flooding in there, so we can't do that. We're very much working in the dark. We've lost the Chair, the chance of a referral. So we've just got to go with yay or nay. So that's fine. I'll go along with that. But I'm wondering is there sufficient grounds for refusal? Do we have them? Because I don't think we do.
Within that, there was a question of this is in a floodplain. The answer is no. This is not in any floodplain. Well, yeah. So, and it's not within any catchment of the river or the storage area of the water there. It's outside of all of that. That's the only answer I can give you.
It's a shame we don't have Councillor Harris here, because he sort of knows everything about that area. It would be so much easier. Ponds and lakes, which and the island is a beautiful place, but prolonged heavy raining. I was informed that it has breached and come across because it just overfills with the sheer weight of water. Doesn't appear to be any control or any sluice or any way, thing like that. So, as I say, my main concern was that we have consultees, and we're basically not listening to what they're saying. And this has happened so many times. And we want to get it right, and we want the applicant to do what they want to do, and we want to support them, of course. But we need to go away from here knowing we've made the right decisions on the night.
Councillor Goldman, and then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, page 52, section 9.1, planning, balance and conclusion. If you read that, it's, right? I don't see a problem with this, just from that bit, and I'm going on to the section 10.1, conditions and reasons as well. I think most of this has been covered. I think it has been covered, and I see no reason at all why this shouldn't go through and get passed. I think it's a fantastic thing. It's a beautiful place. I have no problem with it whatsoever. Thank you.
So are you proposing?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, right, okay. Councillor Smith.
I agree that we do need to try and mitigate risk where we can, but there is always an element of risk, and it's sometimes impossible for us to determine what people are going to do. But I'd like to think that if someone is going to go and stay in a lodge that is nature-based like that, that they would take care of the nature around them. And I appreciate that that is a risk. But what's the point of going there if you're not going to appreciate the nature? So on the basis of that, and on the basis of I don't think we'll get the refusal. So I am prepared to second this.
Mr. Guyver has just reminded me, although I did have it written down here in front of me, that earlier Councillor Bray proposed refusal, but there was nobody available to second that one, or nobody willing, I should say, to second that proposal. No? Okay, thank you. So Councillor Goldman has proposed approval of this application as per the recommendations on page 53, and also I'll just bring in our solicitor, Mrs. Fisher, here.
Thank you, Chair. There's just been a few mentions of different conditions, so I just wanted to ensure that the proposal that you were making in relation to the recommendation had the conditions on that you wanted. So I think there was one mentioned by Mr. Pateman-G in relation to the biodiversity net gain condition, which would secure the biodiversity net gain, because that was missing, unfortunately, from the list. So that would be a delegated authority to the planning service or the head of planning to include that condition. And then there was the details of the sewage disposal and the lighting conditions. So I don't know if I can hand over to Mr. Pateman-G to be more specific on that, but I think it's important that we're clear what you're delegating to the head of planning.
Yeah, so the monitoring condition is just an extra to the BNG condition already there. The lighting, the suggestion was that it swaps out from the one that's in your papers. So effectively, rather than the strategy that we simply say no lighting unless they come back with details of that lighting, and we can obviously determine that as part of a separate application. And the last one obviously is agreement of the means of foul sewage, notwithstanding the details of septic tanks provided.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Pateman-G, for clarification. So the proposal is as Councillor Goldman, as per confirmed by Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Pateman-G, and seconded by Councillor Smith. Okay, we shall go to the vote to approve this application. If I could have a show of hands for approval, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against? 1. Abstentions? 1. So this application is approved. Thank you, members. We'll have another 5-minute break. Welcome back to Tendring District Council's Planning Committee on Thursday, the 30th of October 2025, and we are now up to the last item on the agenda. And I'm glad to say that our Vice Chairman made it through the traffic and he is now with us. So item 7 on the agenda is item A325/00807 FUL, which is the Lifeboat House, the Parade, Walton-on-the-Naze. And to present this item, Mr. Pateman-G.
Chairman, point of order, if I may. May I retire?
Councillor Alexander.
May I retire?
Yes, of course
Yes,
you may.
yes.
Yes, of course. It's been so long since the start, I'd forgotten. Thank you for reminding me. Mr. Pateman-G, go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. So this application is for temporary siting, 5 years, for a timber-clad storage container for a lifeboat. And this is at Walton-on-the-Naze. So we have the site location plan. The west side of the existing building would be the siting of the container. I'll come back to that in a moment. Currently hard standing, and it's proposed for 5 years for storage. Just to put that area into context, we're not that far away from Walton Pier, and you all have visited the site. We have a few photographs. This just demonstrates the locality next to the existing building. We do have some existing landscaping there that is, according to my details here, not to be touched. This will be adjacent to that. So just essentially on the other side of that hedge and on the hard standing just there. Okay, so that's where it's going to be sited. To put that into context, here's the block plan. Ultimately, set against the existing landscaping, designed to allow the launch of a boat to the north onto North Pier Street. And again, just to put that into context, and we have the elevations. Again, it's a functional container to store the boat, which would be cladded. There is a slope going across the land, which is indicated on the drawings, as you can see. The storage container, by virtue of its industrial form and relatively open siting, will be considered to be harmful to the character of the surrounding buildings and to the detriment of visual amenity. This is slightly mitigated by the timber cladding and the retention of the low wall screening. However, ultimately is considered on balance to result in a less than substantial harm to the appearance and significance of the area and the conservation area. Great weight is given to the conservation area. However, significant weight on this occasion is also given to public safety justification of the housing of a lifeboat. It is considered that this public safety justification outweighs that harm on that basis. It is, however, also considered to outweigh that harm on the basis of being temporary storage for the purpose, while a permanent building and plans are sought. And therefore, in conclusion, it's going to be recommended for approval. I will point out that it is before us on the basis that it is council-owned land, and that is the only reason it is here before committee. If there's any other questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman-G. There are no speakers on this item, so we'll go straight to questions for the officer. Councillor Bray.
First again, I'm making it a habit. I note, Chair, that there is some form of objection from Essex County Heritage. Are we genuinely just seriously looking at a question of harm versus benefit here? Because that is the way it seems to me. Is that the way that you would see it too?
That's essentially what we've just said. Yes, we see that we recognise there's harm. We wouldn't want, with respect, a building such, a container such as this in this location, very visually prominent long term. But we recognise the particular need in this particular circumstance, and that is considered to be significant material. And obviously, the saving of lives is a significant material consideration.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. I think in that case, given it's a temporary siting in lieu of a permanent building when the time comes, more than happy to propose approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Smith.
I'm more than happy to second
Councillor Smith. Councillor White.
Very much in favour of this, in the interests of safety, not only of the occupants of the RNI people, but of course how much of an interest this is when one thinks where they have to come from to launch the lifeboat at the present moment. And therefore we've seen the route now of how they can launch from here, and it makes me wonder, it seems to me such a shame that we've got to go through the procedure to build a temporary place, and to grant 5 years, and then hopefully we'll get a permanent place there. But just ask the officer really a question, is it not possible to get the final, one would think, a brick-built building there rather than have the cost of a temporary building for 5 years?
I don't have the ability to answer that or the remit to answer that, unfortunately. We have to deal with the proposals before us.
I would have thought our planning manager would tell me that, but it's just a comment. You've got a proposer and a seconder, Chairman, so I can't add my things to that, but it seems to be that we ought to get on with this job straight away. But as you've got a proposer and a seconder, I'll wait for a vote.
Thank you, Councillor White, and thank you, Mr. Pateman G. I see your point, Councillor White, with what you've just been saying. It is, I know when I looked around there, I thought, well, yeah, but however, on balance, it's the saving lives at sea, isn't it? That's, and it was interesting as well that the representative from the RNLI that was there showed us the route that the lifeboat will take down to launch as well, so we're aware of that. I'm certainly in favour of this application, so if there are no further comments or questions, we have a proposer, Councillor Bray, seconder, Councillor Smith. So all those who are in favour of this application being approved, would you please show? So that is unanimous. Thank you, members. So that's the last application of this evening, which just leaves me to confirm to you. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Yes, if you bring Councillor Alexander back in. The next planning meeting for Tendring District Council will be on a Thursday again next month on the 27th of November. And I hope you all have a safe journey home.